So I'd like to call to order the Business and Governance Committee meeting of March 10th. It's 10th? No, 12th. May 12th. I'm looking at some old stuff here.
Wrong date up there.
All right. So with that, I want to make sure I have the right agenda here.
You're probably looking at the summary.
I do. Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right. In that case, I will move on to new business and start with Johnny Tran.
Yeah. Thank you. Val, just for the record, we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, CJ. Last year, the board revised their education policy so that the trustees would adopt a year-long education plan. I think it was a great idea. It gives the board an idea of what each trustee is doing for the year and also gives staff the opportunity to recommend courses. So thank you, each of you, for communicating with me and getting your plan in order. You'll notice the proposed plan is attached to in my staff report. You'll notice some of the education programs occur in fiscal year 2016, and all of those have been previously approved with the exception of one. I included those in the plan such that you would just see what everyone is doing and notice that their plans weren't deficient in any way. Carol Broad did attend one conference in April, the Deutsche Bank conference, and by including it in this agenda, I'm recommending that the board ratify her decision to attend that conference. Other than that, if you have any questions?
All right. So do we need a motion to ratify?
I think the motion would just be to adopt the plan as written.
Okay. Including ratification of that attendance?
Yes.
All right.
Do you want me to change this?
I don't think so.
Johnny, just one thing. I didn't realize this covers the current fiscal year, too. I'm attending a conference in June that's not on here.
In June of 2016?
Yeah.
Oh, it's already been approved, so we shouldn't have that
Oh.
problem if it's not
already
listed,
approved.
but
Okay.
I believe it is listed.
Yeah, we voted on it at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not listed on the schedule.
That's what I meant. It's not, I thought you were listing on the schedule.
Okay. Well, it's already been approved, so I apologize for not having that on the list, but there's no problem with you attending it.
No problem. Okay.
All right. In that case, we need a motion and a second. We have a motion from Ed Katrosser. I've seconded the motion to approve the plan as proposed, and all prior approvals are incorporated into this plan, whether they're set forth here or not. Okay?
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
All right, and that carries unanimously. And brings us to staff's recommendation to approve an annual cost of living adjustment effective July 1, 2016. And Marcel Rossman will present.
Good morning. Excuse me. So you have before you both my cover memo and the letter from Chiron regarding the cost of living increase for this year. It is 0.7%. The CPI calculation did not come up to the 2%. So at this point, we have any retirees who retired after July 1st of 06 will be receiving a 0.7% COLA, and all other retirees will receive a 2% COLA. At this time, we've got about 30% of our retirees that are going to receive the 0.7. And then after this year, excuse me, we have another 10% of our retirees who will have exhausted their COLA banks. So next year, if COLA again is less than 2%, we've got about 40% that will be receiving a less than 2% COLA. The last
What year of retirement will that be next year?
July 1st of 04.
04, okay.
Yes. So we've got 6 of the last 8 years, the COLA was less than 2%, so that's what's eaten into all of their COLA banks. After this meeting, actually after tomorrow's meeting, once this is approved, Member Services has been working on a communication that will go out to all of our retirees, similar to what went out last year. This year's communication will be a little bit cleaner because there's just 2 groups. You get 0.7 or you get 2%. Last year's communication had 4 different groups depending on what you still had left in your COLA bank. So it shouldn't be a complete surprise to retirees, but we do want to make sure that we communicate that to them. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. So I think we need a motion. Motion's been made by Dick Wilkin, and I've provided the second to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. You can stay right there and tell us about staff's recommendation to approve abatement of interest for 3 benefit overpayments.
So this is related to the corrections we've been working on members who exceeded the 90% cap that was put into place in November of 2002. We've gone through the 37 members that have been identified. I want to do one quick update on that. We said we'd contacted 34. We've actually contacted 33. We have one member who we know what the correction should look like, but it is a very complex correction. They actually have 3 options to correct, and 2 of those options would result in them owing more than $10,000. So once we are able to meet with that member and have them decide which option they want, then we would come back to this board again and ask for a separate abatement for them. The other thing I wanted to clarify in here, under member A, it says that we're asking to abate interest of $17,345.19, and it doesn't say there's anything remaining because there is not. That member exited drop after July 1 of 2010, so we're asking to abate all of the interest on them. So on these corrections, we're asking that for the members who owe us money, we're asking to abate the interest after July 1st of 2010 because of the delay in us correcting their benefits.
All right. We have 2 speakers in the queue on this. I'll first turn it over to Mr. Tran.
Yes, trustees, I just want to point out that in your materials is the summary of the advice from fiduciary litigation and tax counsel concerning this recommendation. And also, if you wanted to, we have Chris Waddell, your fiduciary counsel, available to phone in if you had a question for him. Thank you.
This is the same topic we've discussed in closed session previously.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
My question relates to, did we notify the city that this was on the docket? And if so, do we have any feedback from them?
Yes and no. I did notify Mary Lewis and the city attorney about this 2-3 weeks ago. I have not heard back from either party.
All right. Any further discussion, questions? There being none, we have a motion from Dick Wilkin to approve staff's recommendation and a second from Ed Katroser.
Ready to vote? All votes are in.
This passes 5-0. That takes care of new business. But you can stay there because
Tell me.
you're the next item on the agenda under old business.
Amazing how we arrange the agenda like that, isn't it?
How convenient.
Yes. So under old business, you have a report on members who owe us over $10,000. We did have one additional member who owed us over $10,000 and has been notified. That member has not yet appealed or told us whether or not they're going to appeal. And then we have one member who was previously reported to you who has paid the principal but is appealing the interest. And so we'll continue to let you know how that process goes through. And happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. And next on the agenda is SDCERS recommendation to the City Council regarding amending city charter, and that's with Johnny Tran.
Yeah, in 2014, the Charter Review Committee asked SDCERS for ways to improve the city charter. With your feedback and also staff's recommendations, we gave several recommendations on how to revise the charter. Since that time, we've appeared before various committees at the city on 7 occasions. And I thought it'd be appropriate at this point to bring these items back to you so you at least you know a status of where your recommendations have gone, where they're going, or if they've died. So this is a non-action item, but I'll answer any questions.
Were you present, or did we have staff present when they discussed our suggestions?
We did.
Is
We
it
were.
possible to describe the rationale they provided for the ones they turned us down on?
Sure, I have a status next to the recommendation. So it varies, Dick, on the reasons. But for instance, one of the big topics that the board has suggested is amending the charter to allow for the city to cover overpayments or underpayments caused by the negligence of city employees. And they decided to not adopt that recommendation after proposing it, I think, 3 different times for various reasons. Because Prop B is in litigation, because of the political climate, because of the cost of putting it on a ballot measure, to give you examples of reasons why that item failed.
I would add that the intent, I believe, at the start was to do anything and everything that would make the charter simpler, cleaner, more current, and that led to us coming up with a good list of 10 things which we believe met those criteria. And then as this process went forward, I think there were an overwhelming number of ideas that were coming forth, not only from SDCERS, but from the mayor's office and so forth, and there were so many changes that when they looked into what the process would be to put this on the ballot, they identified that there were significant costs associated with putting it on the ballot because they couldn't combine recommendation A with recommendation B if they were unrelated. So all these changes need to be individually called out. So for example, on the June primary, they have 7 different initiatives on the June primary ballot relating to 7 changes that they wanted to make. You know, so if they had 25 changes, that would have been 25 initiatives on the ballot, which is overwhelming for taxpayers. Wow. Plus there's a cost. I don't really know what the number was. I was hearing, you know, several $100,000s to be doing all these individual initiatives. So I think it just got to be a much bigger project than they anticipated. So even though a lot of our ideas were good, I think they were looking for the ones that would have the most impact and might be the least controversial.
It seems to me that we're a victim of circumstance on this, and that these are good ideas that shouldn't be dropped just because the political climate wasn't right. So can you comment, Mark, on what the future holds for these ideas?
Yes, and Johnny will chime in as to help as well. One of the ideas, for example, had to do with rotation of board member seats. So I'll set aside the elected seats right now, but for the appointed seats, there's 7 appointed seats, right? And 4 of those rotate off, potentially, in one fell swoop in 1 year. And then 2 years later, 3 of them could potentially rotate off unless you were all eligible and accept to be reappointed. So I was just telling the city attorney, or the city clerk's office and the council member Leitner, that it'd be better to have more progressive staggering so that you would have no more than 2 appointed trustees being rotating off in any 1 year. We had a situation not that long ago where we had 6 new trustees in the span of about 4 months. It was rather overwhelming. So that's a good idea, Val. They've actually said that one we can talk about as a municipal code change, which would only require the vote of the council to do it. So that is something I think we can still do. With the other ones, it's hard to know. There was a recommendation in there that you allow, or we allow, and request that port and airport members vote on elected positions, but they can't actually run for a board seat. So they can vote for someone, but just not one of their own, which seems really ridiculous. And
I understand there's some political pushback on that one.
there is. So I don't know whether we'll be able to get that through with the Charter Review Committee right now, but you know, I am still trying to work with the port and the airport to ensure that they feel they've got every opportunity to speak before our board on anything that's of interest to them. We notify them in advance of all of our meetings what the full agenda topics are. We specifically brief them on any issues that are relevant to them. They often have representatives that are in the audience that come and speak to us. So we're going to continue to try to keep them engaged.
They may be able to make better progress independent of us with a direct meeting or two, it seems to me. Have they ever tried to approach the city council themselves?
I don't know if they've attempted to have individual meetings. Johnny mentioned that we've appeared before one committee or the other 7 different times, and most of those occasions there was a port and airport representative that also spoke. In fact, when Johnny and I were there just 2 weeks ago, Johnny's counterparts at both the port and the airport spoke on this issue I've just discussed. So they've been making their points known to the council.
All right.
Yeah.
So to the extent that there are any of these good ideas that we can pursue other than through a charter amendment, such as the municipal code amendment, then is there a plan in place for staff to propose that municipal code amendment, for example?
Not yet, but what I would say is once the final nail is in the coffin on all the charter changes that they do go forward, we can do a postmortem on which ones did not get selected and could be eligible for municipal code consideration and revisit that with the city at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that report. I think that takes care of old business and moves us into status reports. So, Mr. Tran, you have the first status report.
Thank you. You got my legal and compliance staff report in front of you. I just want to point out or highlight two items. A side letter was passed by the City Council between the city and union MEA related to interest on underpayments caused by errors in city employers and SDCERS employees. So what the side letter does is it indemnifies or agrees to pay that interest owed because of underpaid contributions for any error made after January 1st, 2016 going forward, but only if the Proposition B is overturned through current litigation or the city charter is amended to cover that. So there is no ballot measure to amend the city charter, so I think that avenue has passed. But as far as the Proposition B litigation goes, that's still up in the air. So that's an interesting turn of events. Also, all the Form 700s have been filed for SDCERS filers, so that was due April 1st. I appreciate each of you doing that for us. We've reviewed that with Jamie Hamrick and Investments Assistance, and we don't have any real problems or anything to point out or any highlights.
All right.
Thanks.
Any questions or comments on anything Johnny didn't cover? No. That brings us to IT and David Bond. Oh, we do.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
On the legal projects and disability retirement for the mental disorders, I was just I was kind of surprised to read that. How did they come across that particular date, the July 1, 2010? Was it, and is that when it was kind of ignored out of the MOU?
Yeah, I think you're on that. I spoke with the city attorney's office, and the city had agreed in a prior MOU to move that date that a violent attack occurred from January to July 2010. It was just never adopted or put into the municipal code. So this is something that had been in the MOU agreement with the Police Officers Association and is just coming to light now through the municipal code.
Last year we had a member here that was kind of covered by this. Is that member going to be affected?
I think I know what member you're talking about, and I think that might be a different situation. So we'd have to look at the merits of that and how this change applies to them.
Okay, thanks.
All right. David Bond.
Good morning. In addition to my written report, I'd like to announce that we are in the era of high definition. Our high definition upgrades are in place and we are streaming this meeting live. I'd like to thank Western Audio Video. They completed this project in a very short window between our March meetings and between this meeting to get everything in place and it's operating. There's one or two tweaks that we're looking at, potentially the font size on the screens. It's very crisp and clear, but we may want to make it just slightly bigger. We're looking at some lighting solutions, perhaps to illuminate the trustees and the dais a little better, but we'll see, because the low light cameras are supposed to work, actually brighten up the picture. So
Dick Wilkins specifically asked for that.
The project is being fully funded by the city through public education and government monies. So the invoices are going directly to them and they're paying for it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great job, Dave.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you,
since
David.
I asked particularly for this.
For lighting on the diet.
Wait till you see yourself in HD.
Won't like what I see, huh?
All right, next we have the Member Services Report, which will be given today by Marcel Rossman.
Good morning again. So I'm going to go ahead and give Cynthia's report on member services and kind of combine a little bit with the Ben admin report. Cynthia's not able to be with us this morning. Cynthia always likes to stress the collaborative nature of what we do here, and so there are 3 things in her report that I wanted to call out that show that very clearly. The first one she talked about was the Health Information Day that we had. It was the second annual one we had for retirees. This is different than the help day we have where all the vendors are there and they can go ask their specific questions. This was presentations from the 3 healthcare vendors, presentations from risk management, an overview of it. And it was very well attended. We had almost 200 people there, and that was a collaborative event between member services, the health section over in benefits administration, the risk management department, and City TV. It was filmed on City TV and is available on our website. So that was a big success, and we're working on ways to make it even better program next year. The second thing that was talked about is the member portal enhancements, and that was a huge joint effort between Information Technology Division and Member Services to get some enhanced security for members initially logging into the SDCERS portal. So that went very well and was completed. And then the last one that she talks about is the corrections we're doing. So we talked about that a little bit earlier this morning, and Member Services and Benefits Administration work very close together on these corrections to make sure that we get the members contacted, that we answer their questions. In general, we're able to answer their questions with one meeting, which is great. There are some that are more complex that take more than one meeting, but we do work very closely on those. And then the last thing I want to talk about, which is specific to Benefits Administration, is our year-end process this year. This is technically our 3rd year-end with IRIS. The first year-end can't really count. We went live May 29th, so June 30 came really fast. Then last year was our first real year-end. We had a couple bumps in the road, which we expected. This year is going very smoothly. We've been testing the COLA adjustments. We've been testing the new rates that take effect July 1st for contributions for city members, and we've been testing the actuarial files. And the actuarial files is one that's always taken us a long time. We run reports, we have to do a lot of work on it, and that is looking really good, and we probably will be able to get that out to Chiron at least a month earlier than what we normally do, if not more like 45 days earlier. So that goes back to IRIS was a fantastic investment. We appreciate the board's support on that one, and it has definitely made our life quite a bit easier. And I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Just a comment. There came to my attention recently that one of the individuals who was a retiree whose case was corrected as a result of the 90% cap situation was concerned that she says she was told by someone on our staff that there was an audit going on of all retiree accounts, and that wasn't the case. And I appreciate staff looking into that, and that wasn't what was told to that individual, but I just wanted to clarify that that's not the situation, and that there apparently was a misunderstanding, and staff will correct that.
That is correct. We did do some research into that, and as you all know, we are not looking at every single retiree account. That would be an enormous project, and we don't have any reason to believe that we need to look at every member's account. So we're looking at the list of employees that we think may, or list of members we think may have an issue.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add one thing, which I've said before, but just to clarify, when we did go live with the IRA system, we have 20,000 members, and we looked at calculations for all 20,000 members in Pension Gold and replicated those calculations in IRIS. So that led to several hundred matters where the differences existed, and that is what we've been working on for the last 2-3 years to clean up. And as Marcel said, we're expecting to finish that by the end of June. So a couple of years ago, we looked at all 20,000 members, but it wasn't an audit. It was more like replicating calculations in both systems, but no audits of that many accounts.
All right. Thank you very much, Marcel. Next, we have a finance report from Ted LaSalvia.
Good morning, everybody. Quite a bit of financial information there. If I could take this in a different sequence, if we could go through the budgets versus actual amounts, and then we'll do the March financials, and lastly, the finance staff report.
All right.
So just to refresh your memory, we just went through the FY17 budgeting process. As part of that process, we looked at where we would wind up for the remainder of FY16 in relation to what we had originally budgeted for FY16. If I could just refresh your memory, we were projecting to be significantly under budget from a projection standpoint for the remainder of this fiscal year. And then consequently, this 9-month budget versus actual statement portrays that image. So for the 9 months ending March 31st, we had total expenses of $32.9 million. This is $10.1 million under plan based upon the FY16 9-month amount of $36.6 million. The original amount that was projected for the entire fiscal year, budgeted for the entire fiscal year, is about $48.7 million, but we're projected to be roughly around $44.4 by the end of this fiscal year, and this is continuing to hold true. Salaries and fringe were about $5.5 million. This is 4.8% under budget due to, once again, the open positions in BA and member services, which are expected to be filled by year end. Legal expenses were down about $600,000, or 19.5% under budget, based upon the commentary of us settling the PSC litigation lawsuits. In March, though, 4 of the 5 cases were affirmed by the Court of Appeals, and 1 of the 5 was actually sent back down to the Superior Court for additional proceedings. So that will have some impact, but we can't estimate what that might be here in FY17.
I just wanted to clarify, Ted used the word settle. That's a legal term. We resolved it because the Court of Appeal came up with a decision, but there was no settlement between the parties. But
understood. Retract the word settled. IT expenses were $1.3 million, or 10.7% below the $1.5 million budget, but this is more related to the timing of expenditures, and we plan on being on par with budget at fiscal year end. General ops were $2.7 million, or 3.6% lower than the budget of $2.8. We had lower expenses for actuary services, fiduciary insurance, audit services, travel and training, and this is actually all offset by increased office operations expense for temp labor due to a document back file scanning project that we have currently ongoing. As Dave alluded to, with capital expenditures, we've already seen the results of the HD project. But what we had for the fiscal year was approximately $50,000 budgeted, of which we made an initial payment to a vendor that's being carried currently as a kind of construction in progress amount. The reality is SDCERS will be reimbursed for that full amount because the entire project is to be paid out of the PEG funds from the City of San Diego. So although it is part of the CapEx schedule, this is an amount that will disappear prior to the end of the year. And with that, I will open this floor to any questions you might have on the budget itself.
The pension administration system replacement, is that just timing, the over budget?
Yes. So what had happened is that we had about $100,000 budgeted for FY15 as a final kind of holdback payment. $40,000 was originally budgeted for FY16. We delayed the payment of that $100,000 and did not pay it in FY15. Hence, it hits here in FY16.
All right.
Okay. If we can turn to the March financial statements. You have 3 months' worth of financial information. The last time this was presented to you, we had presented the December financials, facing challenging market conditions that continued to accelerate during the months of January and February, with a bit of a recovery during the month of March. But when we compare what I presented last time in December. The challenging conditions still exist. Under the statement of plan net position, we have net position of $6.6 billion. This is a decrease of approximately $119 million year over year. At December, we had reported a decrease of $27 million, so this overall effect continued to increase. Investments totaled $6.7 billion, a decrease of $119 million over the prior year. Last time we reported, we were up about $44 million in December. For the income statement or the statement of changes in plan net position, we had total additions of $110 million. Now, this is about a $145 million pickup from where we were in December, because we reported about a negative $35 million in total additions. Total benefit payments and expenses of about $363 million. We were at $239 in December, so this is an increase of $124 million in payments out. This resulted in a decrease in net position of approximately $253 million versus what we had reported in December at $274. So we had an improvement of about $21 million since the last time we'd reported out. Once again, investment income is the most significant difference. For the 9 months ended March, net investment loss was $149 million as compared to negative $208 million in December. Now, to take this into context, when I said that it was challenging during the months of January and February, in February we got to a net investment loss of $410 million, so we had a substantial improvement during the month of March. Related to the statement of reserves, this reflects the composition and net position restricted for pension benefits. As of March 31st, total reserves are $5.7 billion, an increase of $73 million over the prior year. And with that, I will open the floor to any questions you may have on the March financial statements.
Looks like there are none.
Seeing none, we'll go directly into the finance staff report. Both myself and Mark Hovey presented the board-approved FY 2017 budget to City Council on Tuesday, May the 10th. It should be noted there were no significant questions asked. It was evident that the City Council was more focused on the upcoming SDCERS July board meeting. I wanted to stress that SDCERS, and specifically Finance Group, had been looking to replace Avi O'Brien, who took a different position with the City of San Diego, and I'm proud to announce that Ms. Rebecca Shee has been promoted from a Retirement Financial Specialist 3 to an Accountant 4 within my division. Rebecca, please stand. To give you a bit of her background, Rebecca was actually instrumental in helping us complete the 1099-R and W-2 process at a time when Avi was winding down. In addition to doing basically what it amounted to as her job, she'd covered for Avi, obviously, in the time period since Avi's been gone. And she's also my right hand on the investments process. She helps us record the net investment activity and is instrumental in providing analysis coverage of what's going on in various funds as part of a process that Lee Parvano had requested finance do on a quarterly basis. With respect to this, I also was originally going to bring Richard Delgado, who's my other accountant for. So these are kind of my left and right hands within the finance and accounting department. So unfortunately, Rich is attending the City Supervisory Academy today and tomorrow and will not be present. But at some future point, I will present him to the D&G committee. Right now, finance continues to work with the other divisions related to the IRS system, but when we talk about really what is done, the other divisions are more operational in nature. They're the ones that actually retire people, determine benefits. Finance basically presents the financial results of all of those transactions. Hence, we are intimately involved in their details with respect to how they process items. I can't stress enough how much visibility IRS has actually given the finance group in actually determining what's going on with a particular member. while you may have heard about issues, over time, the reality is those issues are actually dealt with much more quickly and with a much better answer, I think, overall. So once again, I'd like to stress my thanks for the successful implementation of the IRA system. Currently, we have meetings with State Street Bank, other pension systems, and sometimes with the GASB on the implementation of GASB 72, which will be a big issue for us. Now, when I say big issue for us, it doesn't change anything that we do from a financial reporting standpoint. It just adds additional disclosures, and it provides sheds more light on the types of investments and the fair values and how we go about fair valuing those investments over time. This will be subject for discussion in the upcoming CAFR. So we remain focused on recording, analyzing, and reporting the financial activity resulting from the operational activities of all of the other divisions. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ted.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, if I could.
Sure.
Have we tied down dates yet with the auditors for the interim and the final field work?
Not yet, but I would expect that the interim field work would once again begin in July, and then they would come back in the beginning of October. But I plan on, because of GASB 72, trying to set up a meeting here sometime before the end of this month, if not the beginning of June, just to go over those so that we will be prepared for the upcoming July B&G committee
Great,
meeting.
thank you.
Thank you.
As Ted's leaving, he mentioned briefly the City Council's questions when we presented to them this week were more focused on the pension payments that they're expecting to pay over the next several years rather than our budget itself. And when Ted mentioned they were interested in our July meeting, of course they're referring to the upcoming Chiron presentation where they'll be going through the experience study, looking at the actuarial assumptions, which have a profound impact, or can, on what the city pays. So wasn't on the agenda, but that's what they were interested in talking about.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments from trustees or staff? No? Any non-docket items? In that case, the meeting is adjourned. Good job.